Hello! So I really wanted to film this outside today, but it's raining, so I guess we're inside. Alright, so I feel really good going into this video. I got the first one out of the way, so now I kind of know a little bit more what I'm doing. I don't feel as awkward talking to the camera, and so yeah, I'm ready to go. Lately I've been going through and reading Genesis, and this past week I got into the story of Joseph. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about Joseph, and it's actually only 2 verses, but once I stopped and thought about them for a while, I was like, man, this is loaded. So, in Genesis 37, it starts to go into the life of Joseph. Okay, so right here, Joseph is 17 years old. And he is his dad's favorite son. There's 12 sons. He's the favorite. And his dad gives him a special coat. And it's actually like a coat that would be fit for royalty. So I just want to read Genesis 37 verses 3 and 4. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made a richly ornamented robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. So after I read that, I kind of just stopped and thought about that for a little while, and just the part at the end that says that they could not speak a kind word to him, that just really stuck out to me. And I just thought, like, that is that's pretty strong, that you can't even say something kind to your brother. That's pretty strong hatred. But what we're talking about today is jealousy, which is seen really clearly in this story. So first, I think that jealousy breeds hatred, and hatred gives us an unkind spirit. As we see in these verses, Joseph is obviously the favorite, and his brothers know that, so they're probably super jealous, and so they hate him, and then they can't speak a kind word to him. So jealousy does breed hatred, and then it leads to an unkind spirit, which is actually the opposite of what we're called to. In Ephesians 5:2, it says that we're called to walk in the way of love, just as Christ is love. And so I think that jealousy is a super big problem that we need to talk about, especially in the church, since we're called to the exact opposite, which is love. And I think that jealousy a lot of times kind of goes under the radar, because it's one of those things where we can have it in our heart, and then it leads to other outward things that are more visibly seen. So it's more of like the root of a lot of the things that we may do, I think. So one way that I have really seen jealousy in my own life and in the lives of other people around me is in just seeing someone else's success and really being jealous of that. When we don't see success in our own lives, then we want someone else's, and we do whatever they're doing to try to get it, and we try to copy them, hoping that we'll have the same results. But I really want to say that you will never succeed in someone else's calling, and you will never be able to walk in someone else's gifting. God made each person specifically for something. So God made them for that specifically, and that's why they're seeing success. But God made you for for something else, for something special and unique. So you're not gonna succeed in what they're succeeding in, because your gifting is something completely different. God equips us and makes us for the things that He's called us to do. And if you don't know what that is, then you're gonna continue to try and copy everything else that you see anyone else succeeding in, and that's just never gonna work. So God made you for something, and you will never be fulfilled and walk in the fullness of it until you stop looking at what everyone else is doing and trying to copy them. So how do we move away from jealousy? I think that the opposite of jealousy is contentment. So how do we find contentment? I think that contentment comes from confidence in who we are and what our calling is. So to be content, you have to know that what you have, the gift that you have, is a good gift. Know that God is the giver of good gifts, and that He created you special, and He created you and is working in you and is equipping you for something. So know that what is good for someone else maybe is the exact opposite of what you need. So you can say, that's good for them, but this is good for me. This is where I'm supposed to be. And I have a couple examples of that are really practical, and even things just in my own life. So one example is the gift of singleness versus the gift of a relationship. Now, both of these are really good gifts from God, but they're completely different. And it can be really hard if you are in one of those seasons and you're looking at the other one as a really good gift, but thinking that the one that you have is not a good gift. You think that it's terrible and it's not where you're meant to be right now. And so you keep staring at the other one like, I want that so badly, when what you have right now is where God has you. And I've seen that in my own life, like in singleness, like it's really hard not to look at a relationship as a perfect gift and what I want so badly. And that's jealousy. So it takes knowing that what I have is a good gift, that singleness is a good gift, and that I can be confident that this is the season God has me in, and be content in it. So another example of confidence and contentment that I'm going to pull from my own life is going to be between me and one of my closest friends. She is one of the smartest people that I know. She's really gifted in thinking intellectually and just any kind of business and economics and understanding how all of that works. And I, on the other hand, could not tell you the first thing about how that stuff works. I am very much a people person. I want to know how people's brain works, and I want to know what they're thinking. So if I were to go into the business sphere and try to do whatever she's doing, I wouldn't do terrible. I would not pass classes, probably. I would not enjoy what I'm doing, and I would not be succeeding. While on the other hand, she is succeeding so well, doing so great in school. And I am too, because I'm not trying to go to business school. So that's just an example of how we have to know and understand that our giftings are different than other people's, but that's okay, and that is good. That is the way that God created us and the way that we're supposed to live. So don't try to fit into someone else's calling and gifting, but try to find your own. See, the problem with Joseph's brothers is that they didn't know that they were loved, and they didn't know that they were valued. This would have been a very different story if they were all given a robe of royalty and they all knew that they had a place, and they all knew that they were loved by their father. But Joseph's brothers did not know that their father loved them. They didn't know that they were valued. And so when they saw that in Joseph, they saw that he was loved and valued. All they could do was be jealous of that and hate him and be unkind to him. So I encourage you, go to the Father. Know that you are loved, that you are valued, that you have a purpose. Because then you are able to live with intentionality. You are able to seek that and be fulfilled. And I'm embarrassed that I'm about to quote reality TV, but I am. As Hannah Brown said in The Bachelorette, stay in your lane. That's actually some good words right there, because if you know your purpose, if you know your identity, and you know your goal, then you are able to stay on track and you are able to follow that. But if you're too busy looking at someone else's and you're too busy looking at the person next to you and what they're doing and what they're aiming for, then you're gonna get off track really fast. So stay in your lane, run in your lane. When I was in YWAM in the discipleship training school, we had like an entire week on this. So this is something that I could talk about for a long time, and it's because I have had to learn it in my own life. This is something that I have really struggled with in the past, recently, presently, even with some of my closest friends. I've struggled with jealousy, and that is just so destructive to the church, to friendships, and how we're supposed to operate and work together. So I want to go to Ephesians 4:11 through 16 to close in talking about this, talking about the body of Christ. Okay, so I'm in Ephesians 4, starting in verse 11. It was he who gave some to be apostles, some to be prophets, some to be evangelists, and some to be pastors and teachers, to prepare God's people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves, and blown here and there by every wind of teaching, and by the cunning and craftiness of men and their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will in all things grow up into him who is the head, that is Christ. From him the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. So finally, I just want to close and say that when we are confident in ourselves, in our own gifting, then we can encourage others in theirs, and we can build each other up. That is what we are called to do. But we can only do that when we know our place first. And in these verses, it uses the image of a body, and I know that this is something that is talked about a lot, but it's so important to grasp that we are a body with different parts, and each part is necessary, and how we live is by fulfilling our own part. We have to know what our part is and know the importance of it, because we live as a body. And then I also want to point out verse 15. That's actually going to be the verse of the week that I encourage you to focus on and meditate on the rest of the week. It says, instead, speaking the truth in love, we will in all things grow up into Him who is the head, that is, Christ. And I just want to point out that right here, it says, speaking the truth in love. And that's the exact opposite of what Joseph's brothers were able to do in Genesis. In Genesis, it says that they were unable to even speak a kind word to him. So here we see the opposite, speaking the truth in love. And that's because each part of the body knows their purpose and they do it intentionally. And then they're able to encourage others in their part and in their gifting. So to close, I just want to ask you, who are you jealous of? And a lot of times it's difficult to know this. It's hard to see because, again, it's kind of like a root. It sometimes can go unnoticed. So to help figure out or find if there is jealousy in your life, I ask you, who can you not seem to speak a kind word to? Now, there's lots of reasons for unkindness, but I think that one of the major ones is jealousy. So are there people in your life that you find it really difficult to be kind to? And are you jealous of them? Is that why? Give that to God. My last question is, whose calling are you trying to follow? And whose gifting are you trying to walk in? If it's not your own, I just want to remind you that you aren't going to be fulfilled until it is. So that is all that I have for this video. Again, go back and just think about verse 15. And my next video is going to be a Q&A. It's going to be really, I want it to be kind of fun, so it can be just questions about me, about really anything. And so, yeah, I will put a poll or question thingy in my Instagram story so that you can ask me questions there, and I will answer those in the next video. Have a great week. Thanks for watching. Bye.